I need you to halt everything you're currently doing, because what I'm about to reveal is not conjecture, not a hypothesis, and not a superficial interpretation of the news. At 7:43 this morning, 3 Republican Senate leaders entered Mitch McConnell's office for what should have been a standard leadership session. 47 minutes later, they emerged, and within 2 hours, Washington was engulfed in the most significant internal party rebellion we've witnessed since Watergate. This isn't about political differences. This is senior Republicans arriving at the determination that Donald Trump has become impossible to manage, and what sparked it will astonish you. If you're interested in what transpires next, subscribe immediately and activate notifications, because the upcoming 72 hours will determine whether the Republican Party remains whole or fragments in a manner it cannot reverse. Here's what nobody is covering yet, and here's what I've verified through 3 independent sources inside the Senate Republican Conference. Early Wednesday morning at 2:17 a.m., Donald Trump initiates a call to the Senate Majority Leader and insists on an immediate vote on what he terms the Emergency Powers Expansion Act. He issues an ultimatum: approve it by Friday, or he will primary every single one of them. He warns he'll campaign against Republicans in their own states. Then, at 6:30 a.m., leaked audio starts spreading. A recording of Trump privately stating, "I don't need the Senate. These people work for me." That audio circulates through senior Republican circles, and the reaction isn't fear, it's rage. By 7:43 a.m., an emergency session is organized. McConnell, Thune, Barrasso, and Cornyn are behind closed doors for 47 minutes, and what they determine in that room becomes the most substantial challenge to Trump's authority from within his own party that we've ever witnessed. To comprehend why this rebellion matters, you must understand the mechanism Trump has employed to control Senate Republicans for the past 8 years. It hasn't been ideology. It hasn't been policy. It has been fear, weaponized successfully. Fear that can regulate an entire party. Every Republican senator recognizes the examples. In 2020, Mitt Romney votes to convict Trump in the first impeachment proceeding, and Trump's reaction is swift and merciless. Romney is labeled a disgrace, censured by his own state party, isolated and politically wounded. The lesson is obvious: challenge Trump and you suffer. In 2021, Bill Cassidy votes to convict in the second impeachment. He attempts to restore the relationship, degrades himself publicly, votes with Trump repeatedly, pursues approval that never genuinely arrives, and the instant he stops being valuable, Trump supports a primary opponent anyway. The message intensifies. Loyalty isn't protection, it's only a postponement. Then in 2023, Kevin McCarthy negotiates a debt ceiling agreement. Trump privately objects, and within weeks, McCarthy is ousted as Speaker. The message becomes crystal clear. Trump can eliminate anyone at any moment for any reason. That's how authoritarian control operates. You don't punish everyone, you make examples. After that, fear accomplishes the rest. For 8 years, that fear has been total. Senators observed careers terminate, observed colleagues get degraded, observed the price of defiance unfold in real time, and they kept deciding that compliance was safer than opposition. But Trump neglected to account for one thing. Fear only functions until people comprehend the threat never stops. That understanding arrived this week because 3 factors converged and altered the calculation. First, the electoral mathematics shifted. The 2024 Senate map is punishing for Republicans. There are 23 Republican seats up for election and only 11 Democratic seats. And polling now demonstrates Trump association has become a net liability. Specific data from Montana, Ohio, and Pennsylvania reveals Republicans declining 6 to 8 points when directly connected to Trump. One senator expressed it plainly to a colleague. "I can defend conservatism. I cannot defend chaos." Second, the Greenland catastrophe isn't just humiliating, it's dangerous. NATO allies are concerned. The defense establishment is in rebellion. And one retired four-star admiral characterized it as instability, not strategy. Members of the Senate Armed Services Committee comprehend what many voters don't. When you threaten military action against Allied territory, you aren't negotiating. You're destabilizing the international order. Third, the legal pressure is intensifying. Multiple criminal cases are advancing faster. Emergency stays are being rejected. Trial dates are confirming. And a senior Republican lawyer stated privately that the party is looking at nominating someone who could be in federal custody by November. When you combine electoral vulnerability, foreign policy recklessness, and criminal exposure, the cost-benefit analysis transforms. Defending Trump stops being uncomfortable and starts resembling political suicide. According to two sources briefed on the session, here's what occurred inside McConnell's office on Wednesday morning. The participants were McConnell, the institutionalist; John Thune, the pragmatist; John Barrasso, the loyalist under pressure; and John Cornyn, representing the raw electoral reality senators are confronting. McConnell opened by playing the audio, the full 3-minute recording of Trump saying, "The Senate works for him." He played it twice. Nobody's source described the silence as suffocating, because every person in the room grasped what they were hearing. This wasn't a president frustrated with Congress. This was a president declaring Congress irrelevant. Then came the exchange that transformed everything. Thune spoke first and said they couldn't defend any of it. Not the Greenland rhetoric, not the emergency powers demand, not the threat to primary their own members. He said they couldn't appear on television and explain this to voters who were already exhausted. Barrasso responded with the conflict evident in his words. He cautioned that if they oppose Trump publicly, he will destroy them individually, and he reminded them of the examples: Romney, Cassidy, Cheney, the people who stood up and were expelled or made irrelevant. He asked how this was different. McConnell leaned forward and answered with the line that changed the room. He told them it was different because Trump is going to destroy them anyway. The question, he said, isn't whether they survive politically, but whether they go down defending Trump or defending the institution. He cautioned that if they don't draw a line now, there will be no institution left to defend. Cornyn followed with the blunt electoral reality. He said Texas polling had him down 4 points, and every point was tied to Trump-adjacent chaos. He said voters want stability and governance, not their senator explaining why the president is discussing invading Greenland. This is where it becomes critical, because McConnell's proposal wasn't symbolic. It was structural. He laid out a plan. Draft a joint letter to the White House stating clearly the Senate will not vote on expanding emergency powers. Announce that leadership will not campaign with Trump unless the foreign policy rhetoric is moderated. Warn that if Trump initiates primaries against sitting senators, leadership will support incumbents using the full war chest of the National Republican Senatorial Committee. Then McConnell looked at each of them and demanded an answer on the spot. Thune said yes immediately. Cornyn said yes. Barrasso stayed silent for what one source called the longest 30 seconds of the meeting. Then he said McConnell was asking him to commit political suicide. McConnell replied that he was asking him to do his job. Barrasso finally said yes. 4 men, 4 votes. And with that, the structure that has held the Republican Party together for 8 years began to crack. What happened next moved with stunning speed. At 9:15 a.m., McConnell personally contacted 15 senior Republican senators with a simple message. They're doing this, and he needs to know who's with them. 3 committed immediately: Romney, Susan Collins, and Lisa Murkowski. That was expected. But 2 commitments shocked everyone involved: Lindsey Graham and Marco Rubio. Pause on that for a second, because Graham's shift is the earthquake. This is Trump's loudest defender, the man who was golfing with him last weekend, the senator who has defended every Trump controversy and every indictment on television for years. And now he breaks. A source close to Graham says he told colleagues he's defended everything, but he won't defend threatening to invade Allied territory. He won't defend dismantling Senate authority, and he won't defend calling dissenting senators traitors. He said there's a line, and Trump crossed it. By 10:47 a.m., the letter is drafted. 5 pages, legal language, constitutional framing. The key line from a copy described by sources states, "They can no longer in good conscience enable conduct that threatens constitutional order and undermines the institutional prerogatives of the United States Senate." Before noon, 12 signatures are committed. At 11:30 a.m., Trump gets word. An aide alerts him through an encrypted message that McConnell and 11 others are signing a letter opposing the emergency powers push, and it will go public today. According to leaked texts circulating among staff, Trump's response is, all caps, "Traitors, all of them." Then Trump moves. He starts calling loyalists. At 12:15 p.m., he calls Lindsey Graham. The call lasts under 2 minutes. Someone briefed on the conversation says Trump tells him, "You're dead to me." Graham responds, "Then I'm dead," and the call ends. Trump calls Rubio and says, "He made him and will destroy him." Rubio responds, according to the same source, that Trump is destroying himself and should do what he thinks he needs to do. Trump tries calling McConnell 3 times, and McConnell doesn't answer. By 1:40 p.m., the split becomes visible. House Republicans issue a statement of full support for the president. Senate Republicans stay conspicuously silent. Reporters notice the gap immediately. By 2 p.m., major outlets are running stories about Senate leadership refusing to back Trump's emergency powers demand. At 3 p.m., the letter leaks, and it's described as intentional. The Washington Post receives a copy. Politico confirms the signatures within minutes. By 3:15 p.m., the full text is everywhere, and the political world understands this isn't a private disagreement. This is open revolt. But the detail that leaks about 20 minutes later shows how serious this is. A senior Republican strategist familiar with internal planning says Senate leadership has prepared a 3-stage contingency plan if Trump retaliates. Stage 1. If Trump attacks publicly, 5 additional senators issue supporting statements, and leadership holds a press conference affirming they respect the presidency, but serve the Constitution first. Internal assessment puts this at 80% probability. Stage 2. If Trump initiates primary challenges, the leadership PAC commits $50 million to defend incumbents. The NRSC refuses to fund challengers, and corporate donors are mobilized around the message that the conference stands together. Probability 60%. Stage 3 is what they hope never to use. If Trump keeps escalating, the Senate moves forward with a formal resolution limiting executive emergency powers, requiring a bipartisan coalition and potentially including censure. Probability 30%. One senator involved reportedly said they've war-gamed every scenario, and if Trump wants a fight, they're prepared. And this time, they're not backing down. Now, here's the part that changes how you should read the next phase. While Republicans were tearing themselves apart Wednesday afternoon, Senate Democrats held their own closed-door meeting. Sources say Chuck Schumer made a calculation that will shape what happens next. Democrats had two options. Option 1 was to exploit the chaos, attack Trump and Republicans together, frame this as a GOP civil war proving unfitness to govern, and campaign on dysfunction. The upside would be huge, but it risks reuniting Republicans against a common enemy. Option 2 was to enable the revolt, stay publicly quiet, offer quiet support for constitutional measures, and let Republicans fully own the split, removing Trump's ability to turn this into partisan warfare. Sources familiar with Schumer's thinking say he chose option 2. The effect is political judo. If Democrats don't attack, then the story becomes Trump versus his own party, a narrative Trump cannot easily win. Behind the scenes, Democratic leadership sends guidance. No public celebration, no cable news victory laps, no statements mocking the letter. Instead, quiet offers to co-sponsor emergency powers limitation if Republicans move forward. The message to Senate Republicans is simple. Democrats will help them do the right thing without making them pay extra political cost. The Republican response to that silence is telling, because when Democrats don't provide an external enemy, the internal fractures widen. Wednesday evening at 4:30 p.m., Trump's Truth Social account erupts with 27 posts in 90 minutes, all caps, calling senators rhinos, demanding primaries, claiming leadership equals deep state. At 5:15 p.m., the first primary challenge is announced. A MAGA-aligned challenger in South Carolina targeting Lindsey Graham. Graham responds with 4 words to reporters: "Bring it on." By 6:40 p.m., Fox News primetime coverage is visibly split. Sean Hannity defends Trump without reservation. Laura Ingraham expresses serious concerns about the Greenland rhetoric. Tucker Carlson says Republicans are finally showing spine. For the first time in years, conservative media isn't speaking with one voice. At 8 p.m., corporate donors move. 3 major Republican donors issue a joint statement supporting constitutional governance and institutional stability. This is business code for backing the Senate, not Trump. By 9:30 p.m., the public count reaches 17 Republican senators aligned with the McConnell letter, with 5 more privately committed but not yet public. The number everyone's watching is 18. If 18 Republicans align with all Democrats, emergency powers expansion is blocked. 18 means Trump loses. Overnight, Another development shows the crisis is deepening. Thursday morning, around 6 a.m., internal Republican polling data leaks to Politico. The numbers are devastating. A generic Republican candidate in swing states is +2. The same candidate with Trump's endorsement drops to -4. That's a 6-point swing. And that swing is the difference between holding the Senate and losing it. Then, at 7:30 a.m., 3 Senate offices confirm something else. 42 Republican Senate staffers sign an internal letter saying they cannot in good conscience continue defending the indefensible. The letter reportedly threatens mass resignations if senators backtrack. This is unprecedented. When junior staffers refuse to draft statements and answer phones for a reversal, the operation collapses. At 8:15 a.m., the business community weighs in again. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce issues a statement emphasizing constitutional stability as essential for growth and investor confidence. A clear warning: stop the chaos or lose funding. The National Association of Manufacturers echoes the message within the hour. Corporate America just told Senate Republicans which side to be on. At 9 a.m., international pressure arrives. The UK Prime Minister's office issues a diplomatic statement expressing alarm about rhetoric targeting the territorial integrity of allied nations. Germany follows. France follows. The NATO Secretary General issues a statement reinforcing that Article 5 commitments are sacred and non-negotiable. Allies are publicly rebuking an American president, and Senate Republicans are reading those statements knowing Trump has created a real international crisis. This isn't a single front. Trump is facing pressure from senators, staff, donors, media, and international allies. This is encirclement. When you're surrounded, you retreat or you escalate. Thursday, Trump chooses escalation. He announces an emergency rally in South Carolina, Lindsey Graham's home state, scheduled for this Saturday. The message is obvious: real Republicans versus rhinos. It's Trump declaring war on his own party in the most public way possible. By 11:30 a.m., Trump meets with his most loyal House allies. Names described by sources include Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, Lauren Boebert, and leadership figures within the House Freedom Caucus. They plan what one source calls a maximum pressure campaign against Senate Republicans. At 12:45 p.m., Trump posts on Truth Social that the 17 traitors will pay and calls for protests at Senate offices. Federal law enforcement elevates security concerns. Capitol Police move to heightened alert. Then McConnell responds publicly through a spokesperson, saying threats and intimidation will not deter constitutional responsibilities and that the Senate doesn't work for any individual. It serves the American people and the Constitution. But there's a part the statement doesn't highlight. Sources say McConnell quietly reaches out to 5 Democratic senators, not Schumer, but visible moderates. Names described include Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, John Tester, Sherrod Brown, and Bob Casey. The message is direct. If Republicans move forward with emergency powers limitations, will they support it? All 5 say yes. The math changes. With 17 Republicans committed and those Democrats willing, the votes to block expanded emergency powers are there. Trump doesn't know it yet, but the revolt has already succeeded. Step back and understand what this represents. This isn't only one crisis. It's the mechanism of authoritarian control breaking in real time. First, fear stops working. Trump's entire structure depended on Republicans being more afraid of him than of electoral consequences. That calculation reversed. Second, collective action breaks authoritarian leverage. Authoritarians isolate targets and pick them off one by one. But when senators move together, commit publicly, and sign their names, nobody can be singled out. The risk becomes shared, and the protection becomes mutual. Third, institutions can resist when they choose to. The Senate has constitutional authority Trump needs, and for years it surrendered that authority voluntarily because senators feared personal consequences. Now they're reclaiming it, proving the weakness was a choice, not an inevitability. So what happens next? There are 3 scenarios with honest probability. 1. Trump backs down, moderates rhetoric, drops the demand, declares victory anyway. Probability 25%. 2. Stalemate. Trump continues attacks but avoids full primary war. The Senate holds firm but doesn't go further. The fracture continues through the election. Probability 50%. 3. Full rupture. Trump launches all-out primaries. The Senate passes emergency powers limits with Democratic votes. The party splits formally, and the electoral damage becomes catastrophic. Probability 25%. Based on conversations described with multiple Senate offices, the likely path is Scenario 2 drifting toward Scenario 3. The split doesn't heal. It widens gradually, day by day, until something breaks permanently. Bring it full circle. This revolt isn't about Greenland, tariffs, or routine policy disagreements. It's about control of the Republican Party. Trump demanded absolute authority, and the Senate said no. And that no changes everything. This fracture is structural, not emotional. It's political survival math. When defending Trump costs seats, behavior changes. Loyalty becomes liability. But here's the concern. Regardless of party, when authoritarians feel cornered, they escalate. Trump has never faced internal revolt like this. His pattern under threat is to hit harder. What happens when the target isn't Democrats, but his own party? Can the Republican Party survive a civil war? Can American democracy handle the fallout of a major party tearing itself apart? Nobody has those answers, but we're going to find out soon. Subscribe right now and hit the notification bell, because over the next 48 hours, 3 things will become clear. Trump will either back down or double down. Senate Republicans will either hold firm or splinter. And we'll see whether this revolt becomes a revolution or just another failed attempt at resistance. I'll be here breaking down every development as it happens. The next 72 hours will decide whether Trump continues to control the Republican Party or whether the Republican Party finally moves to control Trump. Stay alert.